ask him. So without further ado, we're going to show you this next BrightSign video. Hope you enjoy.
Now, BrightSign players include a free BSN.Cloud Control Cloud subscription that allows users to control a single device or a network of players in real time from anywhere. Additionally, you can enroll in a free 30-day trial of the Content Cloud. Content Cloud subscribers can host, schedule, and publish presentations remotely through a desktop app or web browser. After the trial, you can subscribe to the Content Cloud for $99 per player per year, or simply allow the trial to expire and convert back to the free Control Cloud subscription. To access both the Control and Content Clouds within BSN.Cloud, we've created BrightAuthor Connected. With BrightAuthor Connected, you can set up and manage BrightSign players, and you can create, schedule, and publish presentations from one integrated user interface. Now it's easier than ever to get your message out on one screen or thousands. BrightSign, the most valuable player.
And really excited to be here today. I'm Jeff Hastings, the CEO of BrightSign, and today we'll be going over basically how you go from kind of hardware devices to the cloud, and really talking about cloud-connected digital signage today. So, the world of digital signage has been evolving very quickly, and originally started out in very slightly connected devices, and now we're to a point where we have devices connected to the cloud that are real-time connected all the time. So what I'm going to go over today is talking about a little bit about the things that have been changing in the world of digital signage and the new technologies for cloud connecting devices. Talk a little bit about how the challenges of digital signage can be overcome by this. And last but not least, talk a little bit about the business of digital signage. Laura Davies-Taylor talked a little bit about the high level of kind of the economics and what's going on in digital signage, and we'll cover a little more in depth in the way that the cloud-based signage systems can actually help you be kind of more profitable in this business. So first, let's look at the various components of a digital signage system, and this is kind of at a macro level. So at the endpoint, if you will, the things that people are going to be seeing is going to be a player and a screen. So that's what everyone thinks of as digital signage, and really don't think about the other parts of the system. But the first part of it is the player and the screen. That's where people are going to be seeing things, and that's where everything is going to be delivered. So the main part of this is having a player platform that is going to be able to display all the types of content and render things the way that you want them rendered to create the experience. A lot of people say, oh, it's just video and images. I always talk about what's happening on that screen is the experience that you want to deliver to the audience that you're basically putting this thing together for. And it's across many different markets that people use, like our players and digital signage systems. It could be anywhere from a manufacturing floor to a retail to a museum or aquarium. It could be systems in airports and transportation. They're used for all types of applications, but the key thing is making sure that you have a system that's going to create that experience that you really want. So a lot of things about the player platform. We'll talk more about it later in the presentation, but that's kind of the player and the screen is the endpoint. Now, in order to deliver content to that, you need a network. And in the old days, people didn't have networks, and today's world, everything is networked. And I think even here we all are basically being on the internet and being networking, watching a real live stream. All that's part of the network, and the network kind of composes of two things. It's the actual network, your internet connection, which could be a variety of different ways that you connect to it. And then also the network management platform. So the network management platform is really the platform that's going to allow you to manage the devices on the network. So the key thing about this is you have the devices on the network, but if there are issues and other things, you need to be able to connect to the player and connect to the various systems on the network to be able to take care of them. And that's really the network management platform. And then last but not least is the content management system, or the content system. And what this system is going to do is going to deliver the assets and other information through the network to the player to create the experience that you want that I was talking about. So, and these content systems, most of them are going to be focused on the specific kind of application or vertical market that you're trying to address. The key thing here is each of those applications have pretty diverse views of what you're trying to create. So you want a content system that's really optimized for the application that you're going to be trying to deliver. So that's just a high level of the components of the system. And now we'll go into a little bit more about some of the things that are going on lately in the COVID world, but also just more components about this system and how the cloud connectivity can help. So we now look at, what are some of the challenges that have been coming up? Well, the first thing is, no one kind of expected COVID to come up. So people having digital signage, all of a sudden were thrust into this world of, hey, my initial thing that I was going to use digital signage for, I need a completely different application to deliver this. Here I have a little example of, showing out of stock. Like very rarely did retail stores ever have to worry about out of stock situations, or at least telling the customers that, that we have this many things that are out of stock. And then secondly, that's updating on a real-time basis. There's, a lot of the government agencies were putting in capacity controls and all this other regulatory stuff that was literally changing day by day and definitely week by week. So my key point with this is that when you put in a digital signage system, make sure that you plan for use cases that you really don't even think about now. And the best way to think about that is having a system that doesn't just meet the needs of today, but will also meet kind of some unexpected things and growth, because literally the thing that we see with every digital signage system is it originally goes in with kind of a simple mission, and over time, people always want to add and really grow the both the purpose of the system and also the audiences that will be served by that system. So, growth is just a natural progression of a digital signage network. And I think COVID is just, just highlighting the dramatic change that people had really never thought about for their digital signage network, but is now proving to be incredibly valuable for the people that had these signage systems and to be able to, put up capacity controls and out of stocks and things like that. So then we really want to talk about the cloud connectivity. So, much like we're sitting here on this video conference call, it's all a cloud connected system, which is allowing us to bring these things together in a real time and have streaming. If you think back about the old video conferencing days, it was only a point to point system that we'd be able to have a video conference, or maybe 3 sites being a conference together. But here we are. We've got hundreds of people connected up with a live video stream. And that really is what cloud connectivity is. It's basically a network infrastructure and server infrastructure that allows many things to be connected together at the same time and be able to take advantage and leverage those various systems. So with this, if you look at, in today's world, you have lots of different applications, as I talked about, whether it's dining, corporate, government, healthcare. And then basically, if by connecting them to the cloud, what you'll get is the ability to update that content, to look at the devices online, judge their health, deploy them, essentially manage all of this in a real-time basis. In older days about connectivity, people would have to worry about setting up servers for the digital signage system. And that stuff is both complicated, expensive, and also has a long-term cost that you have to manage. One of the really nice things about cloud connectivity, much like a Zoom video conferencing system, it's very low cost to start. You pay for it on a monthly basis or a yearly basis, and you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. So if you ever want to have a video conference call with 2 people, you do that. Or if you have it with 100 people, you don't have to invest more money. Cloud connectivity is the same thing on the digital signage side. You don't have to have servers as you increase the number of devices on your network. It's all in the cloud, and the systems that are out there with this cloud connectivity give you kind of everything you need, from deploying one sign to literally tens of thousands of signs. We have networks that people have tens of thousands of signs all connected to our cloud-based backend that allow them to manage these devices without thinking about the infrastructure or worried about someone, keeping their operation center up and going. So that's really the where digital signage has moved from kind of a traditional network and traditional connectivity to cloud connectivity, much like many of the other systems that we're using every day has gone from using applications in a desktop to be able to use applications in the cloud. So then as we transition, what are the couple of keys to cloud connectivity, right? The first thing is you're going to want a player platform that's really built for cloud connectivity. If the platform doesn't have the core capabilities built into it, you're really going to struggle with trying to force a system of cloud connectivity on something that was not intended for that. The next one is getting the actual network. I talked about the network management, but you've got the core network, and that may be gain a network drop as we work with a lot of manufacturers who put displays in retail. Getting a network drop in one of these retail establishments with all their security regulations and things like that is very difficult. So what we want to do there is try to figure out other ways to get around that, and using cellular modems to get a connectivity, or maybe they have some Wi-Fi networks so you don't actually have to get an internet drop. All those things are going to be key to getting the player on. And with this, you transition to the network management. Your network management platform needs to be able to understand those various networks. So if you're connecting in via cellular network, you need to be able to have cellular management capabilities so that you can figure out if there's something wrong with the cellular modem versus actually the endpoint. The same thing on Wi-Fi. So when you pull these two things together, the network management and the player platform together, those form the system that you're going to use day in and day out to make sure that these devices are running. And if something is happening, you can troubleshoot and you can remotely debug things. Because as we moved into the world of COVID, it was expensive before getting people, on site to fix an issue, and now it's even more expensive and sometimes prohibited based on a lot of the things that are going on with the various jurisdictions. So cloud connectivity should give you all those tools to really absolutely minimize the amount of on-site visits. And this, we'll talk about this more later about the business aspect of it. This is very key to be able to manage the business and actually have a profitable business in digital signage. If you're managing networks and you're sending people on site, you're going to end up in a situation where the economics of the business do not look very good. And then we talk a little bit more about the player platform. I talked a little bit about it before, but a lot of people kind of fail to look into it. Most people look at it as just a cost. It's a cost that I'm going to have to spend. And what does it really mean if I spend more money or spend less money on the player? There's a few different kind of players out there. There's PCs. There's a lot of those out there. There's Android devices. There's bright signs, and there's SoCs. I'd say that's the pretty much broad range of players. What we've seen is on devices that use consumer operating systems, so Windows, Android, those things are great. I'm using a Mac right now. It's an awesome machine. It's a great device for doing my work day in and day out, and I absolutely, wouldn't know what to do without it. But when you start deploying thousands of units into the field, these consumer operating systems like Mac OS, Windows OS, or Android suffer from the ability to have a single application being monitored that's going to run properly. I think all of us know that we have to reboot our devices, we have to reboot our Android phones. All those are things that if you're touching the device is going to be fine. Like I have no problem. Everything's kind of slowing down. I'll restart Chrome, or I'll restart the operating system. No big deal. It's a couple of minutes. But if this device is now somewhere out in the field where I can't physically touch it, and I now have to worry about rebooting it, or a new operating system update comes down automatically and it stops working, that's going to be a very big cost for me if I have to send someone out there. So one of the things that you really want to look for in a player, it's one of the things that we do at BrightSign, it's a commercial grade platform that's built to do one thing, has a lot of monitoring tools built into the actual player so that you don't have all of these other things running. For example, on the BrightSign, you'll never see, quote, a desktop, because you don't want a desktop. What you want is your digital signage content running. The other part of that is the operating system. If you look at a classic kind of consumer operating system, it's intended to put more applications on it and have it do other things, because that's the value of it. In a digital signage system, that's the last thing you want. You don't want anyone to be able to put other applications on that, because that is where security and basically the reliability go down. So one of the things you really want to look at as you're looking at a player, make sure that it's got a lot of level of security. And some of the things I always tell people is just Google some of the security of the devices that you're looking for and just see what it comes up. I mean, it's pretty eye-opening to look at the security challenges, and that's can be a very embarrassing world if you have a digital signage network where someone has hacked into it and changed the content to something that is clearly not appropriate for the application. So those are some of the things you want to look at when you're actually getting to a player platform, what to look for. Make sure that it's secure, make sure that it's updatable at your control, not being automatically updated, because when things are automatically updated, it can things. And really make sure that everything about that system is going to have longevity. I've seen people buy devices and they have, quote, a 1-year warranty, but there's no like long-term support of the operating system. So as new security things, patches need to be created and deployed, there's no one on the other end to support that. And we look at products and networks that you should at least get 6 years of life out of that. That means the vendor that you're going with should be supporting the operating system, supporting the device for 6 years. Not saying it's got a 6-year warranty, but being able to have available upgrades for 6 years is a pretty simple rule of thumb, and you should use that in your evaluation criteria. So that's the player side. And connecting to the screens is all kind of commonplace today, but that player platform is going to be critical to your network. Well, with that, let's move to the actual network management. What are the things that's going to be really important when you look at a network management platform? So in the world of cloud connectivity, you get this real-time management, the ability to change content in real time, the remote control of players. So if you're doing some kind of diagnosing, you should be able to get all the information about that player, about the screen, and to be able to manage that. And whether it's electronically disconnecting the screen so that you can reset the screen, electronically connecting to the player so you can reset it or do diagnostics on it. Sometimes there may be networking conditions that's happening on the local network that's preventing it from not working properly. Your network management tools should allow you to look on the local network and the wide area network to figure out what's going on. The next one is logical grouping. Now, if you have a small network of players, this probably doesn't make a lot of difference, but when you have hundreds of players or even thousands of players, to be able to logically look at them and group them to understand what's going on is going to be key in that kind of network management platform that you're going to want to look at. And I talked a little bit about it before, but security and security and scalability is a very key thing in this world that most people kind of underestimate. But as you get digital signage networks out in the wild, if you will, one of the key things that you want to do is make sure that it's secure and that you can keep adding devices to it to make it scalable. The security, as your network grows, guess what? Hackers and people love to be able to mess with them. So you want to keep the security, very high from day one, and the ability to scale and add more devices. And then the last one is kind of a unified interface. One of the things you want to think about when you put these digital signage networks together is you don't want to have 15 different UIs that's controlling every little a part of the system. I've seen people that they have an operating system management platform. They have a cellular network management platform. They have a mobile device management platform to manage the applications on a device. They keep adding this system, and then they have a content management system. And when you add up all these UIs, it becomes a very, very complicated system to maintain. You have lots of people that you have to train on the capabilities of it. And then you're constantly trying to make sure that all those systems are compatible. So when you put these systems here, try to find solutions that have been pre-integrated, that are known to work, so that you're not being kind of the test vehicle for these platforms. So it's easy to keep adding one system at a time, But at the end of the day, you can end up with a system that is far more complex that you can actually deal with. Next, let's transition a little bit to the business of cloud connected digital signage. So, we've talked a lot about the kind of the fundamentals to look for in these systems. I have not spent a lot of time on the pure content side. I'll talk a little bit about that next. But the real business of cloud connected signage is you have to look at the total cost of everything when you're actually going to deploy these networks and manage the networks. And it's, as I said, it starts with the player and the screen. You need to find something that you don't want to be buying consumer level screens. You don't want to be buying consumer level devices. You're buying screens that are built to run, whether it's 16 by 7 or 24 by 7, depending on your application. These screens are going to have higher brightness than typical consumer screens, and they're going to have a reliability and power supplies that's built to run that many hours a day. Then you have the player. It's going to have whatever you need to get connected to play all the content, but that cost, you want to make sure that it's going to last for 5 years. Much like these screens are going to last for 5 or 6 years, you want the player to last for 5 or 6 years and have the amount of support on that. Then you start getting to the actual deployment of these screens. A lot of times people underestimate the amount of effort it is to deploy a system. They think of the, if you will, the hang and bang aspect of it, but the configuration of it starts becoming a critical component of the install cost. You've got the time to actually physically install them, but then you've got to look at what does it take to configure each one of those endpoints. I've seen systems out there that takes you almost 2 hours per screen to get everything up and running, to do operating system updates, to link them to the content system, to link them to the network management. Those things are going to be very troubling for your business over time. So as you look at both the player side in the network management platform and the content management platform, make sure that these things are pre-integrated and the deployment should be in minutes, not tens of minutes or hours to deploy. And then once these things are deployed, how do you monitor them? How do you make sure that they're all up and alive? That's where you want to have a nice, simple network management user interface that you can monitor the screen, you can monitor the player, you can monitor the content management system to be able to get the feedback that you know where everything is going and that they're actually playing the right content. And then you move on to kind of the more higher level things that people are going to be asking you for. They're going to be asking you for, oh, tell me that this message was actually played this number of times. Some people are actually doing, advertising networks. So in part of the platform, you want to be able to feed back to the advertisers that yes, we actually did play that this many times. Or if we're working with an internal corporate system, the HR department wants to make sure that their message was played this many times. So keeping track of those statistics is another key part of the kind of the network management and the content management platform that you're going to want to look for and make sure it has those capabilities built into it. So there's a lot of things in the business of it that's critical to make sure that it becomes a profitable business and not a money-losing business. And each one of these things, in terms of making sure that it's optimized for cost and availability, is really going to be the key things. It is going to be kind of how you make money on a network. Then we move to looking at what are the ways that when you have this core kind of digital signage platform, that's flexible, secure, manageable, all the things that I've been talking about in the cloud connectivity, then you move to the various vertical markets. And each one of these vertical markets is where you're most likely going to see a large array of content management systems that are really focused on the various vertical markets. The nice part about the platform stuff that I talked about on both the player platform and the network platform is that you can find platforms, BrightSign's one of them, that really addresses all those vertical markets. So you then go find a content system that's going to create the experience that you want on that platform. So as you look at this from a business perspective, you can have the kind of the network and player platform be, one platform allows you to take that solution to pretty much any vertical market by kind of swapping out the CMS system or the content delivery mechanism to create the experience for different vertical markets. But you can have a simple solution at the bottom, if you will, that's scalable and built to address all the vertical markets. And with those, you can grow and change CMSs over time. Some people start out with one CMS and then they're like, really what I want is a lot more advanced capabilities in terms of content generation, things like that. And they'll move to a different CMS. But your screen, your player, your network management platform shouldn't need to be changed. If you need to change the CMS, you can. But the rest of the infrastructure should be the same and shouldn't actually even require you to actually touch the devices on site. So key things to think about when you're doing this is have a system that once you deploy it, you should be able to change kind of what's going to feed that platform in terms of content and experience very easily and not have it be kind of a rip and replace in terms of the whole system. And touching more on kind of the economics and what's going on in digital signage, Laura Davies Taylor talked a little bit about some of the areas of growth. I'm focusing specifically on digital signage. So if you look at the overall market for streaming media storage and distribution, this is from Avixa. In 2019, the estimate was $62.5 billion. And for 2020, it's $68.5 billion. If you look at that, that's about a 10% increase for a year that we all know was very, very troublesome. If you look at what happened, take that out and pull out the pure digital signage solutions part of it, the estimate for 2020 is about $31 billion. If you look at where it's going in 2025, it's predicted to be nearly $43 billion. And if you look at the compound annual growth or CAGR of that, it's about 7.5%. There's not a lot of businesses in the pro AV world that have a CAGR of 7.5% over a 5-year period that we're looking at right now. So as you look at businesses to go in and segments to focus on from a solutions perspective, digital signage is one that's growing. It's very solid. And the tools are coming out, as I've talked about, in terms of cloud connectivity to make these highly profitable for you. So you're delivering solutions that are very acceptable and exciting to the end users, and the ability to make money on these systems, which is core for all of us. I mean, if we're not making money, the businesses don't stay in business. So the key thing here is find markets that are growing and that can be profitably built. So to give a little wrap up, I think the key things here that we've talked about during this is when you're looking at a system, make sure it's integrated, make sure it's scalable, and the hardware is going to be a platform that you can support and is going to have longevity. Looking at something that you can save money on in the short term, and deployment really can cause you problems over the long term. And we've seen it time and time again. And it's been, it's pretty depressing for me when I hear people actually coming back to us like, oh, well, we deployed this other platform. It's not working. It's not reliable. And we're going to have to rip it out. The thing that I always tell people is, if you think about it this way, if you have a few hundred players and those players or that system, each one of those breaks once per year, that means every single day, if you take 260 days, business days in a year, if it breaks once per year, that means every single day you're going to have a device failing. So that doesn't sound like a lot, but it means that you're going to have to employ someone to take care of something breaking every single day. You want something that shouldn't break at all. I mean, it's got to be in the double to triple nines in terms of reliability. And that's what you have to look at, because most people underestimate what it means for have something fail once or twice a year. And we see, some solutions failing 2 or 3 times a year, which means, if you had 250 devices and it's failing 3 times a year or needs kind of maintenance 3 times a year, that means 3 times a day, every single day that you're working, someone's going to have to be fixing that. That's pretty much a full-time job. That's where you get into fixing. If something does go wrong, what is your network management system? What does your player platform look like? What is the ability to connect the screens and control them? All that comes in to a system that you'd love to be able to do over the network and not have actually someone go on site. And the last part of it, just to wrap it up, is digital signage is one of the fastest growing segments in the pro AV world. It's continuing to grow. COVID has only driven that to even higher growth. And that if you're looking for opportunities in the pro AV space to grow, digital signage is one of the top segments to go look at, and also the tools are making it more and more profitable. So with that, I think we can move to questions.
Hey, Jeff. How's it
Hey,
going?
how you
Great
doing?
presentation. Thank you so much. Good.
Oh,
How are
thank you.
you? It's
Doing
been
great.
so long. I think we met at ISC this year, right? And I
I
think like,
I know.
oh, how the world has changed since we met.
Ex- Exactly. The curtain dropped, as you could say, right after
Yes.
ISE. So yeah, but
Right
good to see
after
you again.
ISC. So we met and then the world ended. But
Exactly.
really quickly, yes, just really quickly, I had a question from the audience that was really good. Someone asked specifically if you think the on-premise software is still relevant and what you think the best use case is for it, if so.
So I think in general, most things are going to cloud connectivity. I think that's where most things are going. There are some applications where on-prem solutions are still important because of the environment, because of the restrictions. For example, we see a lot in the defense world. In the defense world, security and penetratability, having something on the open internet is absolutely not going to happen. So for those kind of cases, we see on-prem solutions being important. We also see hybrid solutions. So having cloud connectivity, but then people being incredibly worried about the content being accessed somewhere else. So what they'll do is have a cloud management platform and actually host content that actually fed to the players from an on-prem server, so that there's no way for anyone to actually get access to the content. So we see that as another kind of middle ground. And then by and large, most people use the cloud connected platforms. They've got very high security, but you kind of go from on-prem kind of crazy security levels, and a lot of those don't even have internet connectivity, to hybrid solutions where you can actually have most of your sensitive content, if you will, hosted internally, so only the players can get to it, no one from the outside. And then for the majority, like I said, the pure cloud connected solutions.
So kind of about finding a balance.
It's finding the system that's going to work with your constraints that are required for your security and other things. And like I said, most people, the security of the cloud connected stuff is great, but some people have much higher barriers, if you will, on the security side. And it's making sure the system is designed to accommodate that.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. And thanks again to BrightSign for being one of the platinum sponsors of today. We really appreciate it, and that was a
Okay.
fantastic presentation. And
Okay,
to
great.
everyone
Thanks.
watching, don't
Good
forget.
seeing you again.
You too.